S-234.
Sénatrice Galvez.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Dear colleagues, I rise today as critic of Bill S-234, an act to amend the Canadian Environmental Protection Act 1999, a bill that will prohibit the export of certain type of plastic waste to foreign countries for final disposal. This bill is the same as former Bill C-204, for which I had already given a speech as a critic in the last Parliament before the election. My position on this bill has not changed. I agree with the main principles of the bill. As you know, my thoughts on plastic and pollution are informed by my 3-decade career as a civil environmental engineer, assessing and solving pollution and contamination problems created by domestic or hazardous industrial waste. I have witnessed firsthand the negative impact of our irresponsible, ever-growing waste-producing habits and mishandling of toxic substances. Typical landfill operation stockpile all kinds of domestic objects that could have been recycled, but instead become macro and microplastic that will find their way to soil and water, initiating their path into the ecosystem, the food chains, and ultimately, they are found in wildlife and human organs. The mismanagement of plastic waste creates a social, environmental, and health problems that put at risk the well-being of our communities and future generations. The entire planet recognizes we have a major global plastic waste problem. That is why the United Nations Environment Assembly started a process in February 2022 to develop a legally binding agreement by 2024 to end plastic pollution. And the G7 countries have committed this last April to end plastic pollution with the ambition to reduce additional plastic pollution to zero by 2040. Colleagues, the situation is dire. Every year, 13 million tons of plastic end up in the oceans, pollute the water, and destroy marine ecosystems. Once these plastics enter the ocean currents, they are unlikely to leave the area until they degrade into a smaller microplastic under the effect of sun, waves, and marine life. This has led to the formation of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Please Google it. Watch it. It's incredible. It's a mass of floating plastic that covers an estimated surface area of 1.6 million square kilometers. It's the area equivalent to our province of Quebec. At this rate, and if we do nothing, there will be more plastic than fish in the sea by 2050. High-income countries generate more waste per person, and thus we, Canada, are part of the problem. With an estimated 1.3 billion metric tons of waste per person in 2017, Canada unfortunately ranked as the most wasteful country per capita, and our waste problem is increasing. With respect to plastic waste, according to Environment and Climate Change report in 2019, we generated 3.3 million tons of plastic waste in 2016. With only 9% of it properly recycled, 4% being incinerated for energy recovery, and only an incredible 86% being sent to landfills. But we also mismanage or avoid managing plastic waste since we export it to developing countries. Waste export per capita in Canada is almost 5 kilograms per day, less than UK with 9.5, but more than US with almost 2 kilograms per day. The plastic producer, representing almost half of total plastic waste in Canada, is the packaging industry, followed by the automotive, textile, electrical and electronic equipment, and construction sectors. En effet, plus de 60% de toutes les ressources naturelles extraites finissent en déchets. Quel horreur, quel manque d'efficacité et d'efficience. Ce modèle économique est totalement dépassé et part de l'hypothèse fausse et illogique que notre planète a des ressources infinies et que nous pouvons croître infiniment. Un tel système n'existe pas sur notre planète. Nous devons donc transformer le modèle économique linéaire des souhaits vers un modèle économique circulaire. Il faut apprendre à utiliser nos ressources naturelles plus efficacement, empêcher les produits et les matériaux de devenir des déchets le plus longtemps possible et transformer les déchets qui ne peuvent pas être évités en une nouvelle ressource. Ce sont là les principes d'une économie circulaire qui saurait réduire dramatiquement la pollution causée par notre surconsommation. Le projet de loi S-234 s'attarde à interdire l'exportation de nos déchets plastiques et fait le pari qu'en interdisant l'exportation des déchets, nous serons forcés à mieux les gérer. On ne fait pas référence à des méthodes de réduction de production de plastique à usage unique, ni aux modifications sur une potentielle teneur minimale de plastique recyclé dans les nouveaux produits. Non plus, il ne mentionne pas de pénalités sur la consommation du plastique. Mais c'est peut-être une stratégie qui pourrait fonctionner parce que ça nous forcerait de regarder les problèmes chez nous. In recent years, governments around the world have announced policies to reduce the volume of single-use plastic, banning products like single-use straws, disposable cutlery, food containers, cotton swab, bags, etc. Last July, California became the first U.S. state to announce its own targets, including a drop of 25% in the sale of plastic packaging by 2032. In December, the UK extended its list of banned items to include single-use trays, balloons, and some types of polystyrene and food containers. Bans are also placed in the European Union, Australia, and India, among other places. The single-use plastic prohibition regulation are part of governments of Canada's comprehensive plan to address pollution, meet its target of zero plastic by 2030, and help reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The regulation prohibits the manufacture, import, and sale of single-use plastic checkout bags, cutlery, food, serviceware made from or containing problematic plastic. But we know this is not enough. Indeed, to solve domestically our plastic problem, we need to rethink and reuse plastic production. Recycling must be scaled up fast enough to deal with the amount of plastic being produced, and recycled plastic needs to find its way into new products with content of not less than 50%. According to a Plastic Waste Markers Index report, just 2 companies in the petrochemical industry are recycling and producing recycled polymers at scale: the Taiwanese conglomerate Far Eastern New Century and Thailand's Indorama Venture, the world's largest producer of recycled PET for drink bottles. Yet, Indorama Venture is also number 4 on a list of 20 of the world's biggest producers of virgin polymers used in single-use plastic. The list is led by U.S. oil major ExxonMobil, by China's Sinopec, and another U.S. heavyweight Dow Corporation. In making polymers bound for single-use plastic, those 20 companies generated around 450 million metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions around the world, amount of total emission as the whole United Kingdom, according to Carbon Trust and Wood Mackenzie. Pourtant, l'ordre d'action pour une gestion durable de nos déchets est clair. Réduction à la source, réutilisation, recyclage, récupération de l'énergie et encapsulation des résidus ultimes. Tel est le modèle de gestion des déchets prôné par tous les experts en gestion des matières résiduelles dans le monde. Cependant, le Canada a historiquement choisi de mettre l'emphase sur la 3e option, créant ainsi toute une industrie, celle de l'industrie du recyclage. Nous avons créé cette industrie entière, qui est peu efficace. Nos matières recyclées ne sont très peu utilisées dans les manufactures de nouveaux produits. Les manufactures des emballages, les preneurs de l'obsolescence programmée et les gaspilleurs de matières n'assument aucune responsabilité. Bref, notre gestion des déchets est un échec total. En sautant les deux premières étapes de bonne gestion des déchets, nous réduisons massivement nos opportunités de réduire des déchets. Et pire encore, nous imposons les fardeaux de ces déchets sur des pays en voie de développement qui n'ont souvent pas la capacité de bien en disposer. So, colleagues, where we are with our plastic waste, where does it currently end up? Most of our plastic waste, well above 90%, is exported to the US, with other countries including Vietnam, Malaysia, Honduras, Turkey, and Chile. The trade of plastic waste is internationally regulated by the Basel Convention on the Control of Transboundary Movement of Hazardous Waste and their Disposal, which was adopted in 1989 as a response to the mounting controversy over wealthy nations exporting hazardous waste to developing countries that did not have capacity to adequately manage it, and provoking massive environmental and health issues. This agreement aims to reduce hazardous waste, restricts the transboundary movement of hazardous waste except to nations capable of environmentally sound management, and create a regulatory system to frame permissible trade of hazardous waste. Although Canada ratified in December 2020 new amendments to the Basel Convention, quote, requiring prior informed consent control for all but the cleanest type of plastic waste exports trade between treaty parties. Unfortunately, the United Nations haven't done so, which has many experts worried about the 2020 bilateral agreement with the Americans, allowing exports of plastic waste to the South with less strict control than the Basel Convention and possible re-exportation to developing countries. With heavily mediatized cases of international waste dispute involving Canada in the past few years, I cannot say that I'm confident our plastic waste will be adequately managed under our current agreements. In conclusion, I repeat that I completely agree with the principle of and intent of Bill S-234. It is time that we take responsibility for the waste we produce. For centuries, the wealthy nations of the world have imposed a burden on developing countries by making them deal with our toxic waste. The world is not our dumping ground, and to continue to act like it reinforces colonial tendencies. Our wealth is not justification for the lack of accountability of our own waste. In fact, it should be quite the opposite. We have some of the highest capacities in the world to very well manage our waste in an environmentally sound way. I believe that is an issue that needs a detailed and careful study to compare this bill's proposals and see its harmonization with other domestic and international initiatives, especially given the potential impacts on interprovincial and international trade, and the fact that it affects many sectors. I hope that the committee study will examine how this plastic waste export ban will impact Canada's capacity to manage its own waste. I also expect the study to determine how this bill will interact with our current and upcoming international agreements, including the potentially legally binding agreement on plastic. Finally, I hope the study will also consider the effects of the single-use plastic ban, which is seeing a staggered implementation until 2025. So, colleagues, I hope you'll all agree to send this bill to committee. Thank you. Merci. Miigwech.